Hello and welcome to another episode of the CAGED Canary podcast. I'm your host, Matty Gilbert, and today we are talking about custom decks, or rather, why every magician needs to have a custom deck. As you guys know, I made my first deck of cards last year, 2018, Hidden Leaves. It was printed, released, thankfully. I was able to fundraise the project through Kickstarter, which helped me a lot because just printing a deck of cards for myself is very expensive. But if you are able to sell some playing cards, it will cover your expenses, and then you can have the rest of the cards for yourself. But I think every professional magician should be working with their own custom deck. And the reason why is you can do so much more when you're working with something that's been designed by you and for you. And by the way, that doesn't mean that you need to have a unique back design and unique faces. None of that. You can build stuff into the deck, into the box, to fit your style. You can even print a totally regular deck of cards in a certain order, let's say, instead of a new deck order. So you could open the box and have a specific order that you need that's built for your show. And so that everything is set up ahead of time, you can literally just open the deck of cards and go into your show, and every card is in the position it needs to be in if your work requires a pre-arranged stack. And you can also just print yourself a classic deck, something that you want to use. I remember talking to Eric Mead when we were together a few months ago, and he loved my deck of cards. He thought it was awesome. But he's like, and I'm like, what do you use? He's like, yeah, I use bicycles these days. I'm like, why do you use bicycles? And he's like, yeah, I don't really want to use them, but they're easy. People recognize them. And I'm like, well, you sound like you used something else before. What did you use? And Eric's like, I used to use aristocrats. I'm like, why don't you use them anymore? Well, they're not in print anymore. They don't feel the same way. And he's like, yeah, it was really great back in the day. I had everything built into that deck. I would make all my, he without revealing anything, he had some special stuff that he could do with aristocrats. I'm like, well, what? It's a design. You could print your own badge with U.S. Playing Card Company. They own it. Why don't you print your own badge? You could print, like, I don't know, a few thousand decks. You could sell a few decks to cover your expenses, and then you could use aristocrats for the rest of your career. You would never have to touch a deck of bicycles again. The aristocrats have very classic feel and look. They're a great back design. Great deck. He's like, I don't know, it's very expensive. I'm like, well, yeah, it's expensive, but personally, I believe that the props, everything you use in the show is very important. I think that it matters. I believe in using the highest quality possible, because you really do need the right tools for the job. You really do. And there's a lot of work, especially when we're talking about card work, coin work, really anything that uses props. You need a certain standard of props to be able to do anything sophisticated. We've all been in that situation, I think, magicians, where we've been at somebody's house or a bar or something, and somebody pulls out a deck and they ask us to do something, and the deck is just, it's all crimped, it's bent, it's warped, it's like somebody dunked it in a pail of water and it's been left out to dry, like it's all, like, it's huge, it's like, I don't know. it's just a mess. We all know, like, a trick or something that we can do with that messed up deck. But the point is not to develop all our material with a low standard of props. Of course, we can use, if we absolutely must, a lower standard quality of props. If we must use it in a situation where there's no way we can have access to, better props, we can figure out how to use that lower standard. But I think part of what we're doing is we're working ahead and we're working intelligently, and we want to always be working with the best quality available to us. And what better quality can you have than something that you build by yourself, your own deck of cards, you designed it the way you want. So that was a big thing for me in designing my deck of cards. I discovered smooth cards when Conjuring Arts years ago started printing their decks smooth. I don't think, I might have encountered a smooth finish before. Maybe it was like Fournier's, something like that, where it was like a plastic finish. But I was just, like most people who use cards, it was used to an air cushion finish, which is a great finish, by the way. But the smooth finish just opened up a whole new world for me, and I really, really liked it. So I'm like, when I do a deck of cards, it's going to be smooth. It's going to be made from a B stock. I love the B stock. It's a little bit heavier than the bicycle stock. It's a little, just slightly thicker, and I'm going to have it crushed, and that's how Hidden Leaves were. They were crushed, thin, B stock, smooth. They feel amazing. The people who know about cards, people who don't know about cards, I think they still understand that it's a great deck, but they don't understand why. The people who I know who, are fairly sophisticated at card manipulation, when they pick up a deck of my cards, they're like blown away. They're like, well, why don't we see this quality? Why don't we see this quality? I'm like, well, people are afraid. People are afraid to do something that they want to do. They just want to satiate the market. They don't want to, they don't want to actually do something good. They just want to do something safe that other people are doing. And, just a standard thing. Oh, bicycle. Oh, what are the cards doing? Oh, they're crushing the stock. Let's do the crush stock, bicycle crush stock, air cushion finish. Nobody wants to explore anything else. I do. I wanna explore and come up with the best stuff for me. And I think the best stuff for me is probably going to be the best stuff for everybody else. Maybe. Sorry, just sipping my coffee. So yeah, every magician, I think, today needs a custom deck. I was not of this mindset a few years ago. And I didn't understand it. I was like, I was very much of this school of thought of like, everyone should just use a bicycle deck. A bicycle deck is a standard deck. No one's going to ask any questions about it. Just use bicycle. Just use bicycle. Use B. Use something that everybody sees in the movies. And that changed for me. There's more and more custom decks out there, and it really depends on the design. As long as your deck can functionally work as a deck of cards, like people can look at it and be like, okay, this is a regular deck, then I think you're good. But even then, like, people are used to more and more custom decks. But I think generally for Magic, you want good visibility at a distance. Use standard faces. All my playing cards are very standard in that they have a classic design to them. So even though the artwork is different, it's based on a few things, Goodall and some old school Doherty designs. Even though it's based on those, you can still look at it and be like, oh yeah, This is three of diamonds. That's a queen of clubs. That's the you won't have any you won't have any problem identifying the cards. Another thing I did was no indexes, because for me I wanted to explore early Magic. I wanted to explore the Magic that people before us were doing, and having no indexes was something that they were used to. There was no indexes on cards, indices, whatever you want to call them. And so that became a big thing for me, and every single day that I think about it, honestly, something comes up. I'm like, oh, this was one of the first prearranged orders in a pack. This doesn't look very deceptive. Oh, yeah, you know what? Do it without indexes. The whole thing becomes invisible. And also old tricks that you never, that just have sort of been thrown out. Like, oh, this is not a great trick. This is just something that people used to do. Magic wasn't sophisticated back then. No, it's like, yeah, Magic wasn't maybe as sophisticated in some ways, but there was some great stuff. People were not stupid back then. Like, it's not like somehow in the last 100, 200 years that our brains have just evolved and just exploded and, in creativity and thought processing power. It's not what happened. I think we're pretty similar, if not exactly similar, in terms of our intellectual capacity to people were 100 years ago, 200 years ago. I don't think it's changed. But anyways, that's just for me. I designed things that I wanted, and I find there's a power to it. You can really just make what you want. One of the things I want to do in the future, I don't know when, probably not anytime soon. Actually, I don't want to announce, you know what, I have so many good ideas, I don't want to announce it, but I don't want to announce it over the podcast, but I do have ideas on how to bring back really classic designs that you see everywhere, bicycle, bee, and make them, improve them, basically. Just totally improve them. I think the first people who really, there were a few companies who started to improve classic decks, a few individuals. Richard Turner, he had his gold standard, his gold seal, whatever it was called. I think it was called the gold seal. Decks, which were, I believe they were just regular were they bicycles or bees? I forget. They were one of those two decks. I think they were bicycles, but it was a gold seal type deal where he was printing it on a bee stock, traditionally cut, and those were fantastic cards. Those like elevated the standard for bicycles. People could actually use bicycles for multiple shows. Like the cards would last very long because of that. It was just creating a higher quality product, and they could also Pharaoh right out of the box. They could do a lot of stuff. Whereas a regular deck of bicycles, like you open it and I mean, you pretty much have to sand down the corners. It's rough. When you open it, it's like, it feels rough. The cut isn't nice. I don't know if that's the blade at the factory. I don't know what that is, but they don't feel good out of the box, regular bikes. So you can, even like what Richard Turner did, get a deck that you really like, and even if it's a classic deck, a deck that everybody knows, you can build it to your standards. You can change the stock. You can change the finish. You can change the artwork. You can add or remove things from the artwork, and keep those things hidden from other people, so everybody will think that you're working with a regular deck, and you actually have things built in. You could change the box to reflect your branding. You could even print a regular bicycle deck, regular B, regular tally-ho deck, change the box to reflect your branding. So your performance stuff. Maybe you change the jokers and the ad cards. I don't know, whatever you want. And then afterwards, you have something that you can sell after the show. You can have something that you can hand out. It's your business card. The box has your name on it. The cards inside the box are what you just performed and, created magic with. I think everybody should, any professional magician should be considering printing your own custom deck of cards. Of course, I'm only talking about the U.S. Playing Card Company right now, but there's tons of companies out there, and they all have their own things to offer. They're all the ones that I know of are fairly good, and they all have unique features. So you can really, this is a time like no other time in the history of playing cards. You can literally have whatever you want made, and the market is built in a way where people will actually support your project, so you could actually sell a certain number of them in order to cover the costs of the project, and then you could have cards left over to work with for the rest of your life. I just think not a lot of people are using this method of thinking and acting, and it's just something that we need to do today in order to progress in magic. We just need to go a little bit further than we're going. We really do. So I just think it's the simplest number one method. If I wouldn't recommend it if you are new to magic. I don't know if I would recommend it. I think you should wait until you are at a level where you feel like you could benefit from having your own custom deck, and then really think about what you're going to be performing with it, what you want built into it, and then design it and run with it. I just think it's great that we have this opportunity to do this, that these playing card companies have custom divisions. It could be that they don't exist in a few years. I don't know. I don't know how much money the custom division brings in. I can't imagine that it's as much as what USPCC or, some of these companies are making on the regular divisions. These companies sell millions of decks of cards a year to Walmart, to the casinos, to every single big store, the pharmacy chains in the country, and they make so much money off that. Why would they keep a custom division around? So I don't know, but they're around right now, so I think we should. I think we should be taking advantage of it. We should use these custom divisions, build our props, and plan ahead for your life. I don't think there's any harm in printing something that you're going to have and use for the rest of your life. I printed many hidden leaves, and they were for myself. I want to have enough hidden leaves and my own playing cards to last me for the rest of my life. Every single time I use a deck, in a show or on stage or on TV, anything, I want to be using my deck of cards. I want people to see my deck. I want them to see my artwork, but I want them to see my deck. I want them to know that that is something that I've made. That's something that's available. It's just part of my branding. I want everything that I have and that I use on stage to have a story, and I just don't want it to be like, I got this cheap little, $5 deck of cards at the store, and of course I can do magic with a $5 deck of cards. there's no problem with that, but I think everything that you use in a formal show, in a formal setting, should be of the highest quality. I think if you're just doing you're at the bar and you're like, oh, let me show you something. Who has change? Reach into your pockets. Oh, can I borrow your watch? Can I borrow your hat? That's a different situation. That has its own place. Obviously, you're going to be using what's in that environment. But when you are coming to the table, when you are coming to do a show, when you're sitting down and you're dressed up in your nice suit and you're doing a show, you must be using high quality props. You must be using high quality everything. People judge you on what you use. So many times where you could spend a little bit of money, think a little bit ahead, and use something that's just a higher quality. I'm having wands made, magic wands. These are, just little carved pieces of wood, really. But I didn't want to. I looked at the market of. I just want like a cylindrical rod. Like, it's literally nothing special. It's just even the whole way through. Doesn't have any fancy design, scroll work, none of that. I just wanted a simple rod. I could not find it. I could not find a nice one. So, I have to do research on how to get that made, and, the wood, the varnish, the finishing, all that stuff. I'm not a woodworker, so I have to do the research. But it's like, there's such a difference in coming to do a show and then coming with like a magic wand that you bought at, like, I don't know, a magic convention or a magic shop, and it's like, just this ghetto tacky thing, this black material, and then it has these white tips on the end. It's like the tackiest thing ever. I want a certain aesthetic and a certain feel for my props. And that goes with everything from my practice boards to my table to the clothes that I wear in my shows, to the playing cards, the coins. I use silver half dollars from the 40s. I don't know. I just think that it's something that we need to be looking at. And custom decks are in vogue right now. I think it's great that they're in vogue, but we really should be using it to our benefit. Build some stuff for yourself that nobody knows about. Don't tell anybody. Build a deck of bicycles. Build a deck of bees that you can work with. And yeah, think about it. Please think about it, because it will change your work. It really will change your work, and it'll change your whole thinking. Ever since I've had my own custom deck, my whole thinking on Magic has gone in totally new directions that I would have never even dreamed of, even when I printed the deck. Just spending time with a deck without indexes, it has transformed my mind. It really has. So think about what you want in your deck. Go for it. I wholeheartedly support you in your efforts to creating unique and stronger Magic for yourself and for others. Think about it. What's the worst that could happen? You design a deck and then you do a Kickstarter and it fails, so what? You do another one. You figure out the finances and you just do your best. And then I'm going to try to convince Eric Mead. I'm going to send him an email. Eric, you got to make those aristocrats. I mean, it bothers me that you are working with cards that you don't want to be working with just because they're easy to get. I would love for you to work with aristocrats. That's your favorite deck. That's what I want to see in your hands every single night. Every single night, I want you to hold your favorite deck. I want you to be proud of what you're carrying and holding and working with. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. I've enjoyed it. We are working on a few new decks of cards here before Magic. We will have some new announcements to make in the next week or two, so please keep your ears tuned to that, and I will catch you in the next one. Have a good week.